Recently, I came across a piece titled Giant Floating Solar Farms Could Make Fuel and Help Solve the Climate Crisis, says study. And in the piece, the author of the piece explained that millions of solar panels clustered together to form an island could convert carbon dioxide and seawater into methanol, which can fuel airplanes and trucks according to new research from Norway and Switzerland and published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences Journal, as NBC News reported. The floating islands could drastically reduce greenhouse gas emissions and dependence on fossil fuels. The paper argues that the technology exists to build the floating methanol islands on a large scale in areas of the ocean free from large waves and extreme weather. Areas of the ocean off the coasts of South America, North Australia, the Arabian Gulf, and Southeast Asia are particularly suitable for mooring these islands. A massive reduction in CO2 emissions from fossil fuel burning is required to limit the extent of global warming. However, carbon-based liquid fuels will in the foreseeable future continue to be important energy storage media. We propose a combination of largely existing technologies to use solar energy to recycle atmospheric CO2 into a liquid fuel, the study authors wrote. The paper suggests floating islands are similar to floating fishing farms. The researchers envision clusters that would consist of approximately 70 circular solar panels or islands covering an area of roughly a half of a square mile. The solar panels would produce electricity, which would split water molecules and isolate hydrogen. The hydrogen would then react with the carbon dioxide pulled from the seawater to produce usable methanol, according to NBC News. The study authors argue that this method will address the hurdles of making renewable energy competitive with fossil fuels on a large scale, as Newsweek reported. The people working on these floating islands are developing floating island prototypes. They estimate that output from 3.2 million floating islands would exceed the total global emissions from fossil fuels. A single floating solar farm could produce more than 15,000 tons of methanol a year, enough to fuel a Boeing 737 airliner on more than 300 round-trip flights between New York City and Phoenix. So, I'm not gonna lie, this story is a bit over my head in terms of the science, but this looks pretty cool. And I'm open to anything that will help us combat the very serious issue that is climate change. Scientists have made it very clear that we need to combat climate change and that we need to combat it now. Otherwise, we figure to do catastrophic damage to both our people and our planet, which is something that we cannot allow to happen. So if giant floating solar farms can really help combat the climate crisis, then investing in giant floating solar farms is something that we really might want to consider.